day and welcome to today's edition of editorials and broadcast from Canada. My name is Sandra Asante. Today we are looking at Ethiopia's Tigray crisis. Reports are saying that war crimes may have been committed as well as objectivity concerns over UN's report on Tigray's civil war. So don't go anywhere. I'll be back after the break. You're welcome back from the break. So we're starting off with the crime war report, and all sides in Ethiopia's Tigray conflict have violated international human rights, some of which may amount to crimes against humanity. A new report is stating extrajudicial executions, torture, rape, and attack against refugees and displaced people were documented. A joint investigation by the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, EHRC, and the UN Human Rights Office said there could be evidence of war crimes. The war broke out on 4th of November 2020. It started when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed ordered an offensive against regional forces in northern Tigray region. Government forces initially routed the forces, but things changed in June with the Tigray forces making significant territorial gains. They are now reportedly approaching the capital Addis Ababa. On Tuesday, the Ethiopian government declared a state of emergency hours after urging residents of the capital to arm themselves. UN High Commission for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet said the conflict has been marked by extreme brutality and called for a lasting ceasefire. There are reasonable grounds to believe all parties to the conflict either directly attacked civilians and civilians objects such as houses, schools, hospitals, and places of worship, or carried out indiscriminate attack resulting in civilian casualties and destructions or damage to civilian objects, the report is stating. Unlawful or extrajudicial killings and executions have also been recorded. The report details how a Tigrayan youth known as Simri killed more than 200 ethnic Amhara civilians in Maikadra in November last year. Revenge killings were then committed against ethnic Tigrayans in the same town. The Eritrean army has joined the conflict, fighting alongside the Ethiopian government forces. Eritrean soldiers killed more than 100 civilians in Aksum in central Tigray later in November 2020. Reports is still saying that war crimes may have not been committed since there are reasonable grounds to believe that persons taking no direct part in hostilities were willfully killed by parties to the conflict. The report is still continuing stating this. So it also cites cases of sexual violence, including gang rape committed by both sides and targeting women, men, girls, and boys. In one incident, a 19-year-old woman was detained and raped repeatedly for 3 months. The case of a woman with disability being sexually assaulted was also reported. The report says sexual violence was used to degrade and dehumanize the victims. The organization also called on the Ethiopian government to conduct thorough and effective investigations by independent and impartial bodies in allegations of violations and to hold those responsible and accountable, but till now they've not been able to do anything. So Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said he ordered the military offensive last November in response to an attack on the military base housing government troops there. The escalation came after months of feuding between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government and leaders of the TPLF, which dominated the political party in Tigray. The federal government renewed ground offensive in recent weeks, including using airstrikes, has failed to halt the forces' territorial gains. Now let's look at the objectivity concerns of these crime reports. So an international human rights investigation into the brutal civil war in Ethiopia's Tigray province will be published on Wednesday. Today, amid concerns at the scope of the UN inquiry has been constrained by both Addis Ababa and ongoing conflict. Due to be released almost exactly a year after the conflict began, the joint UN Human Rights Office and government created Ethiopian Human Rights Commission (EHRC), which nevertheless be the most authoritative overview of the war and its consequences. Independent human rights groups, humanitarian organizations, and foreign media are banned from Tigray in a conflict where at least tens of thousands have died, and there have been accusations of sexual violence and deliberate starvation. Investigators were allowed to visit Tigray, however, because of the partnership with EHRC, but were not able to visit all key locations, including the site of an alleged massacre in Aksum in November 2020 by Eritrean troops fighting alongside the Ethiopian government. The involvement of the EHRC has left Tigrayan leaders skeptical about the investigation's independence, while the conflict, which saw much of Tigray recaptured by forces over the summer, has created further difficulties. David Crane, the founder of the Global Accountability Network and founding chief prosecutor for the Special Court for Sierra Leone, an international tribunal, said, "What you need when you go into an atrocity zone is a clean slate so outside investigators can look into its neutrality dispassionately. You want to do these things where you don't build doubt, distrust from the beginning, including among people interviewed," he added. Ethiopia also expelled 7 senior UN officials last month, including the human rights officer Sonny Oyebula, who was working on the report. Addis Ababa accused the officials of meddling in internal affairs. Rising tensions between Ethiopian government led by Abiy Ahmed and the Tigrayan TPLF previously dominated the country's politics led to the starting of fighting in November 2020. Initially, Ethiopia, in alliance with neighboring Eritrea, seized control of Tigray amid multiple reports of atrocities. Tigrayan forces regrouped and staged a counter-backing, regaining much of Tigray in June and recapturing parts of neighboring provinces. Despite a recent counterattack by Ethiopian forces in October, the TPLF said they have to gain further ground, seizing strategic towns on the roads to Addis Ababa, prompting speculations that the capital itself could fall to the forces. In a sign of paranoia around the fate of Addis Ababa, state media called on Monday for residents to register weapons in the next 2 days. That's quite absurd. But on Sunday, Abiy Ahmed called for citizens to use any type of weapons to block the destructive. That's what he is saying, that the TPLF is a destructive. We all know that that's a fallacy. To overturn it and bury it. Dying for Ethiopia is a duty for all of us. That's what he said. So the rights report only covers the period from November 2020 to 28th of June 2021, when the TPLF recaptured Mekelle, the province's capital, and is based on 269 interviews with victims and witnesses as well as other sources. Some involved in the investigation told the Association Press that the head of the EHRC, Daniel Bekele, underplayed some allegations that forces from the country's Amhara were responsible for abuses and pressed to highlight abuses by Tigray forces. That is untrue, we all know that. But Bekele asserted the commission's independence, saying it was primarily accountable to the people and it's greater to severe, and that he and the commission had consistently cited serious indications that all parties involved in the conflict have committed atrocity. Bekele also said the investigation lacked the support of the Tigray authorities now administering the region. The UN has said Ethiopia's government had no say in the report's publication, though it was given the chance to read it in advance and to point out anything it believed to be incorrect. It has acknowledged there have been difficulties in accessing key locations. Last week, Ethiopia's government released the result of its own investigations focused on the alleged and claiming abuses by the Tigray forces. The Ministry of Justice said it found 483 non-combatants were killed and 109 raped in parts of Amhara and Afar that have been recaptured by federal forces in recent weeks. The spokesperson for the Tigray forces, Getachew Reda, said the allegations were not worth the paper they've written on. Accusations of rapes and killings by Tigray forces are absolutely untrue, and we know that. At least on a level, these organizations are alleging, he said. So this is where I end today's editorials. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Sandra Asante. Do have a beautiful day.